peace plan as a trap. The latest episode of Vladimir Solovyov's program offers less a commentary on the current diplomatic process than a meta-interpretation of the negotiations between the US, Europe, and Ukraine themselves. The central goal of the episode is to establish a framework in advance in which any Western initiatives to resolve the conflict are either fictitious or inherently hostile, and Russia's potential rejection of them is not a sign of a reluctance to seek peace, but a rational and inevitable choice. 1. Redefining the status of the peace plan. The key conceptual construct revolves around the assertion that the US and Europe have already reached an agreement without involving Russia, yet expect its consent. Thus, the peace plan is presented not as the result of negotiations, but as a one-sided political product imposed post-factum. In this logic, Russia finds itself in a paradoxical position. It is simultaneously excluded from the process and blamed for its potential derailment. This is a pre-allocated responsibility technique. If the plan is not implemented, the blame is placed on Moscow, which is allegedly threatening peace by refusing to accept terms it had no part in drafting. To external audiences, this is presented as proof of Western bad faith, and to domestic audiences, as an explanation why any Russian refusal is justified. The main threat to the US-European peace plan is Putin. You see, the US and Europe have already agreed on something, but Putin is threatening their peace plan. You negotiate among yourselves, you sign peace agreements on anything. If you don't ask us anything, what do you want from us? It's clear that we won't go along with those adventurous scenarios that are being peddled to the United States of America to entrench the presence of some kind of NATO occupation forces in Ukraine. The New York Times published their version of these very plans: the presence of European troops in Ukraine, but not under NATO auspices, not under the NATO flag, but they will be covered by the guarantees of Article 5 of the NATO Charter. The question arises, well, what difference does it make whether they will be under the NATO flag? But it doesn't matter whether they will have NATO guarantees or not. That is, the presence of NATO troops, no matter what flag they're hiding behind, on Ukrainian territory, in Russia's underbelly, is unacceptable. This has been stated clearly and unambiguously. This is why a special military operation was launched, and the Europeans know this perfectly well. There's no doubt about that. Why are they hatching such plans? Well, there's no need to doubt it either. It's precisely so that Russia will never agree to it. 2. The semantic collapse. Strategy: NATO under any flag. One of the central arguments of the issue is the unacceptability of any Western military presence in Ukraine, regardless of its formal status. The distinctions between a NATO mission, a coalition of the willing European forces, or peacekeepers are deliberately blurred. The logic is simple. If these forces are covered by NATO's Article 5 guarantees, then they are NATO, even if they formally fly a different flag. This approach eliminates room for legal or institutional compromise and allows any European proposals to be dismissed in advance as a disguise for the previous strategy. This is an important propaganda technique, the nullification of distinctions. She doesn't dispute the details of specific proposals, but rather renders the details themselves irrelevant. 3. Deliberately unacceptable proposals as a pressure tool. Western initiatives are interpreted not as an attempt to find a compromise, but as a deliberate provocation designed to prevent Russia from agreeing. The issue explicitly states the thesis. Such plans are written precisely to be rejected. This allows for the creation of a robust defense against future accusations. If Russia rejects the plan, it won't be a sign of unwillingness to achieve peace, but rather confirmation that the plan was designed to fail from the start. This creates information immunity to any external criticism. 4. Shifting the discussion from politics to the mathematics of war. A significant portion of the issue is devoted to a discussion of the pace of progress, the area of occupied territories, the number of settlements, and a comparison of these figures with the sizes of European states. Even acknowledging the possible inaccuracies of the figures, the overall conclusion remains: Russia is advancing and is capable of accelerating this process. The political question, why agree to a compromise, is replaced by a technical one. If progress is being made, it's more rational to maintain pressure than to accept conditions that are interpreted as strategically dangerous. Thus, war is described as a manageable and measurable process, and diplomacy is seen as a derivative of the military balance, not an independent tool. 5. The construction of a tired and fracturing Europe. A separate conceptual block is devoted to Europe's supposedly growing fatigue, the withdrawal of certain political forces from supporting Ukraine, criticism of spending, and the prioritization of domestic social issues. These examples are used not so much for an accurate analysis of European policy as to create a sense of the inevitable collapse of the Western coalition. For Russian audiences, this is a signal that time is on Moscow's side. For European readers, the message is the opposite. Support for Ukraine is presented as temporary, unstable, and contrary to the interests of European society.